What's up, everybody? It's CMP with Craftmaster Productions and Studio1Tutorials.com. Don't forget to stop by Studio One Tutorials, pick up your premium membership. It is 50 cents a day. And don't forget to stop by CMPKits.com. Get yourself some samples, the finest, most highest quality samples that will make your work inside the MPC a lot less stressful. Also, don't forget to check out the Spicy Sundays podcast with myself and MG the Future, the goats of the producer podcast space. The Spiciest Sunday, all the predictions, all of the I told you so's every Sunday, also available on Spotify. Today we're going to be looking at a topic that I hold dear to my heart, the MPC. Now, the MPC, ever since the release of the MPC-1 and Akai being brilliant enough to make a box that has a low enough price point that isn't in the $1,000 range, a lot of people have come over to Team MPC. And I've noticed in different communities, because I stay lurking, I stay creeping inside different communities, different YouTube videos. I mean, feedback that I get within my Discord, talking with MG's tribe. There is a lot of confusion about workflows and what is the best workflow and what should we be doing with this device. Now, Akai has put us, well, not Akai, but technology has put us in a precarious situation, right? We have these amazing standalone units that, you know, they have some plugins on them. They have some synths on them. They have a piano roll. Okay. They've got a couple different forms of time stretching, and we're at a point in musical history where we are so accustomed to working with music on computers in linear timelines that we have, almost as a collective, kind of forgotten what an MPC is and what it's supposed to mean. And I think that is where the confusion lies. So let me tell you why you're using an MPC wrong. The reason why you're using an MPC wrong is because, and I'm not finger pointing at you guys, I've done it myself. This is a reminder to me and you both, right? So I'm not standing on a high horse, but the reason why you, because you're doing it now, I fixed my shit. You know, you guys are still doing this, but the reason why you're using an MPC wrong is because you're trying to make it more than an MPC. So yes, an MPC technically is a computer. It's a computer, but it's not a computer. All right, stop that. An MPC is not going to do your taxes for you. You're not going to download TurboTax. You're not going to install Mozilla Firefox. You're not going to watch OnlyFans on this thing. No, you're going to do one thing on an MPC. You know what you're going to do on an MPC? You're going to make lay slaps. Slappensteins. That's what we're doing on the MPC. And as far as that pursuit is, I know it is because it's being billed as this device that where you can do everything in one space. And while that is true, that doesn't necessarily mean that is what you should aspire to do. The MPC at its best, right? At its best is a sampler sequencer. Okay, so with the 2.8 update, we now have the ability to control multi-timbral devices. You know, you can hook up a sound module to it. You can control multiple MIDI instruments at one time, right? The same way that I used to use an MPC in the 90s. And that is awesome. So that is an MPC strength. Sequencing outboard gear. Boom. That would be using an MPC correctly. Another thing that it's amazing at, chopping samples. Chop samples on it. That is using an MPC correctly. Programming drum patterns. Utilizing the legendary swing. That is using an MPC correctly. You know what isn't using an MPC correctly, guys? Loading up the software and expecting to use MIDI hacks, right? You know, using Captain Chords, using Scalar, trying to use Melodyne, things of that nature. While it is possible to compose beautiful music using plugins and different sequences in the MPC software, it is not advised. It is a struggle. And I don't understand what is the obsession with taking these devices that have clear and obvious strengths over DAWs, right? Clear and obvious strengths over DAWs, and then trying to force traditional linear DAW-like workflows onto them. It doesn't make any sense to me. So here's what I suggest to all of you, right? If you're just joining the MPC community, or you're rejoining the MPC community after being DAW based for all of this time, what I suggest to you is, the first thing the first thing that I would like to see is, just don't think of the MPC or the MPC software as your solution to creating your samples. The workflow inside of an MPC, unless you're an outboard MIDI guy, the workflow inside of an MPC for like hip hop is you should be getting your samples or your loops from another source. Now that doesn't mean you can't create your samples and your loops. That's what I do. But what I do is I use Studio One to create all my compositions, like the stuff that I sell on my site, the stuff that I chop inside my MPC for myself. I have a workflow. I'll spend like a day or two just making different samples. I'll make myself a folder and then I'll drop it into the MPC. You know what that stops me worrying about time stretch. That stops me worrying about being able to change the tempo, because what I'm doing is I'm splitting up my process. It stops me worrying about key detection. Like, what the why are you guys worried about key detection, bro? Like, are you kidding me? Key detection? Are you serious? Key detection? Really? Key detection? I'm gonna give you guys a hack. If you're one of these guys that's like pining for key detection, here's what you do. You take your sample folder, you drag it into Mixed in Key. Mixed in Key will rename your files with the tempo and the key of the track, and it'll do it in minutes. And then when you go into your sample folder and then you load it up in MPC, boom, you know the tempo of your sample and you know the key of your track. What I'm getting at, guys, is that stop looking at the MPC for its weaknesses. Don't look at it as just like, oh, once I can use Captain Chords and I can use Scalar and I can do my taxes on it and I can upload directly to TuneCore, and then once I'm able to get a recipe for pork fried rice, then I'll be set. Then the MPC will be perfect. No. Most of you guys have DAWs. Use your DAWs. Use this device in conjunction with your DAWs. My personal workflow with an MPC, and I have a lot of fun with it. I understand we like the transports. I will start my stuff in standalone, whether it's hardware only or whether it's opening up the plugin. Regardless, I am not using it inside of a DAW. I will get as far as I can go until I start to get frustrated. Once I get that idea where I need a feature that is more than what I have with the MPC, I save my project. I open up Studio One. I open up MPC. I drag and drop my audio, and then I just keep on working, because all of the great things about MPC, the sampling, the groove, the overall sound of it, I've already extracted, the workflow, the overall fun of using it, the skill that it takes, right? I've already extracted that from the audio stems. Now, if I need to do, an automation, a grow speed, I don't have to worry about any workarounds, right? So let's do that moving forward. Let's forget about the workarounds. Let's forget about wanting this thing to be able to, load Photoshop and do the covers of our singles while we upload to TuneCore. Let's forget about all that. Let's make some samples or buy some samples, chop them in MPC, put a bass line under it. If you're having trouble with that, then move to the DAW, use your MIDI hacks, and keep being productive. This is CMP with Craftmaster Productions, Studio1tutorials.com. Keep it simple, don't be basic. We'll see you on the next one.